Welcome everyone to the council meeting for the 23rd of August 2022, which I now declare open. I'd like to extend a very warm regards to the people who have come to join us in the gallery today. Thank you very much for coming along, and also everyone who's joining us online from the internet tonight. Attendees in the gallery, just be mindful that your presence may be recorded, and if there's any issues you can speak to somebody from governance. Also, if you can just switch your mobile phones to silent, that would be greatly appreciated. I will now say the reconciliation statement. Wananyu nagu wandri wurong gulinj naganan twambik winiruk munivale dari wanananyu gaguk nangik bambut ban yalingbu. Nangik nagal nanyan tabu gaguk nanjit ba nangwaran yuyong gulinj Magali Yalingbu. For those of you who are unaware, that's the second time that has been spoken in the chamber. We were very lucky to have a wonderful session with AJ Williams a while back to help incorporate better things within our council chamber. So I'd like to say a big thank you to AJ and to Annie Gale for helping with that translation. Now, item 2 on the agenda is apologies and leaves of absence, and councillors, we have a full suite in today, which is great, so there's nothing to do in that space. Item 3 on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. Can I please have a mover and seconder that the minutes from the council meeting held on Tuesday, the 9th of August 2022 be confirmed? Move Councillor Bedio, seconded Councillor Tyson. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Declarations of conflict of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest on any item on the agenda tonight? No. I will be declaring a material conflict of interest on item 12.1, 12 and 18 Craig Street, Keilor East, construction of dwellings for reasons previously disclosed to the CEO in writing. At that point in the meeting, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bedio, will be taking over the chair. Item 5 on the agenda is presentations. I believe we have a presentation.
Yes, Mayor. We're at Purple Day is this Friday. You probably noticed I'm wearing a purple badge, and some other councillors are also wearing a purple badge. The theme this year is Still Me, Still Human. We're at Purple was founded in 2010 in response to global stories of real teenagers, real heartache, and their very real responses. In 2010, sadly, several rainbow young people took their own lives following bullying and harassment resulting from the lack of acceptance of their sexuality or gender identity. We're at Purple Day strives to foster supportive, safe, empowering and inclusive environments for rainbow young people. So this Friday, wear something purple and show support for our youth rainbow community.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Well said. And I believe we have another presentation tonight. Councillor Nation.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note the Keilor East RSL's Vietnam Veterans Day commemorative service that was last Thursday. Yourself and the Deputy Mayor gave me the opportunity to speak at this event, which was a commitment from 2021 that couldn't go ahead, obviously, because of the lockdowns. The Keilor East RSL had asked me to give the address back in 2021 to give some reflections as the son of a Vietnam veteran. Vietnam Veterans Day is held annually on the 18th of August, being the date of the Battle of Long Tan back in 1966. On that day, 18 Australians were killed and 24 wounded, and on the Viet Cong side, an estimated 245 were killed and 350 wounded in action. By modern war numbers, it was a bloody day in a brutal and unforgiving war, a war that killed 521 Australians and 37 New Zealanders, a war that killed 58,281 United States military personnel, and a war that saw the South Vietnamese military and civilian deaths number in the hundreds of thousands, and that resulted in the death of an estimated 800,000 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong fighters and civilians. It was the longest conflict in which Australians have been involved in since the start of the 20th century. Australian soldiers arrived in South Vietnam in 1962 and continued to serve until 1972, with aerial repatriation efforts continued through to 1975. In this time, almost 60,000 Australians served this country, including my father, who was called up for national service on completion of his Bachelor of Pharmacy at Monash University in 1967. My address to the service was a reflection on my father's experiences at war and on return from war, and the ongoing struggle many Vietnam veterans face to be recognised as the heroes they are. I touched on the contrasting glorification of our Anzacs and everything they entail and embody, and the lack of recognition of the valour of our Vietnam heroes, many of whom returned from committing their life and lives to and for our country, only to return to face anger, hostility, or even just a lack of recognition. Vietnam Veterans Day is an important reminder of the significant contribution by each and every Australian that has served our country. Sacrificing oneself for the greater good of his or her motherland is not a concept that died in 1945. It continued throughout the Vietnam War and continues through to this day. As a nation, we must stand alongside all Australians regardless of where or when they have served. We must recognise the immense sacrifice of each and every veteran and reaffirm that we recognise all of them, that we appreciate all of them, and that we'll continue to honour their courage and commitment on days of recognition and reflection. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Very insightful. Were there any other presentations for today? No. Item 6 on the agenda are petitions and joint letters, and I believe we have received one petition to be tabled this evening. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor. And the petition's titled Removal of No Standing Signs at Lawgrove Court, Avondale Heights. Council's received a petition with 79 signatures requesting Council to remove the currently erected no standing anytime signs on Lawgrove Court, Avondale Heights. The petition requests that a formal consultation process is undertaken with residents to determine the need and location of signs if required. And I'd note that this is the second petition on this matter in a row following last council meeting, and this is in the same vein and spirit of the previous petition with additional residents from last time, and thanks to Kathy Ortizi for putting it together. Thanks.
Thank
Happy
you.
to second it.
Thank you. We no longer require a second, but thank you, Councillor Sypek. I hear your enthusiasm. So in accordance with Governance Rule 62.4, I will refer to the CEO for consideration. Thank you, Councillor Tyson and Sypek. Were there any other petitions or joint letters? No. Public question time. We now come to public question time, and we've received 2 questions this evening. The question 1 is from Isla Maple, who has advised she will not be in attendance to read out the question. So on behalf of Isla, I will read out. Can the council provide an update on the status of the Patterson Street Pocket Park? Thank you, Isla.
Thank you, Ala. Susan Mayor. Thank you for your question and information. Patterson Street Pocket Park is an exciting new green space for Moonee Ponds. When complete, the Patterson Street Pocket Park will include landscaping, greenery, seating, and shade. The design and consultation of the pocket park has now been completed, and further details of this are available on our council website. A construction contract is expected to be awarded shortly, and a start date will be communicated following contract being awarded. In the meantime, council staff will attend the site this coming week to clear the area of weeds and vegetation so the area is ready for construction to commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Isla, for your question. And question number 2 is from Ante Stivic from the Strathmore Football Club, who has also advised that he won't be in attendance tonight. So on behalf of Ante, I would read out. Why are council parking officers focusing on issuing infringements notices at Strathnavor Reserve, Strathmore? And I'll pass to the CEO for a response.
Thank you, Ante. Through the Mayor. Council's parking officers have undertaken 5 visits to this location this financial year that have resulted in parking infringements being issued. This level of visitation is a reasonable level of service in a precinct where parking-related issues are pronounced. A $185 fine relates to parking in a no-stopping area. No stopping areas are typically put in place to ensure the safety of drivers, pedestrians, and other road users within a roadway or car park. Separate to parking enforcement, council officers are currently undertaking a review of parking at this location, assessing the parking restrictions and any possible parking or traffic improvements that could be made to alleviate parking issues in the precinct. This is due to be reported to Council in October for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the questions that were submitted. Item 8 on the agenda is reports from delegates. Councillors, do we have any reports from delegates this evening? No? In that case, we will move on to item 9 on the agenda, which are reports. Item 9.1 is the draft Riverside Sport and Recreation Precinct Plan. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'll move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. And a seconder? Councillor Tyson. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, there's been a lot of interest in this just over the weekend. I fielded quite a lot of questions from people in Ascot Vale about this, and it's not surprising because I think I'm pretty sure it's the largest open space park, Fairbairn, including Fairbairn, Riverside plus Fairbairn. It's the largest open space in the municipality. In fact, I was interested to read in the report that the total area is 80 hectares, which in fact equates to half of the Melbourne CBD. So it is a sizable portion of land, and the future of it is of great interest to people who live around the area and wider afield who use the area for netball, tennis, golf, and walking along the beautiful Maribyrnong River. So this is a really important precinct plan. This plan is at a draft stage. It's going out for consultation for 4 weeks, and following that we will receive a final report. It's also really important to note that this process is integrated in the tender or procurement process, the EOI process, with respect to the management of the sporting precinct. So this particular plan will inform decisions that are made around that, the decisions around the procurement for the management. From the community's point of view at the moment, what we're really asking is for community members to have a look at the plan and to spend the next few weeks getting back to us about whether it reflects what their vision for the area for the next 15, 20 years. It's really interesting also to note that how prominent in the feedback to date has been the quality of the environment. So 90% of respondents to the initial survey said that the reason they go to this precinct is to walk and to be outdoors in the open space. So that's been acknowledged by the consultants who've put together this plan. The other really interesting thing was that they acknowledged that their initial vision, which mentioned mainly safety, and we all know that the issues of safety are quite acute in the area, and it's one of the things that we're trying to resolve. But the feedback was that it's actually not necessarily just the safety that is important to people, it's the environment and the protection and enhancement of the environment. So that's really been noted, and the consultants adapted the vision to reflect that even in these early stages. Interestingly also, 65% of the initial respondents said that they really want to see the cafe and restaurant made more of, so that's some really good feedback, and 55% want improvements to the environment and environmentally sustainable design to be incorporated in the final plan. It's really good to have that balanced feedback around environment, the sporting value. We want to hear from the community. We want to hear from you over the next 4 weeks. How do you want this precinct to be developed? Does this plan reflect your vision for the area? Please let us know. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Isa, for moving it. I think an interesting thing about this master plan is that everything isn't set in stone, and what we're really asking when we go out to tender is incorporating elements, but not necessarily being rigid about it, and opening things up for imagination and what we can potentially change and look at throughout this process, because it is such a huge plan. The last one was done 7 years ago, and I think I can probably speak for everyone at the table here and a lot of our community who have said to me that this is one of the worst golf courses in Melbourne currently in terms of the state of disrepair. And obviously a year ago we all debated around the chamber about insourcing it, outsourcing it, the quality of it and everything else. And we've moved past that, but really just focusing now on getting the best outcome for the community and making sure that that we're not back here in 7 years with another draft master plan to look at and to potentially not act on. So there's been a huge amount of consultation so far, close to 500 letters were responded to by local members of the community, and I'm sure and hope that there'll be a lot more. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak on this item? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This area, Fairburn Park, was always a little bit of a forgotten child for many years, because it's changed over the past number of years. When we had the Orica site there, it was sort of like a bit of a sore thumb in Moonee Valley, but it's actually starting to blossom, and it's really blossoming really, really well, like a beautiful orchid in spring. I think this is a timely report coming to us. It's timely for the community, it's timely for the council, and I think it's timely for businesses who might want to look at this place and maybe, like Councillor Tyson said, improve the golf course. I personally think it's a beautiful golf course, but it just needs a little bit of touch up, a little bit of pruning, a little bit of lipstick, and it'll become really, really nice. With my previous notice of motion where I said we have to increase our tree canopy, well, this is the perfect specimen for extra trees along the golf course line. I can tell you for a fact I've lost many a golf balls there, and if I had more trees there, my slice would probably save some of my, those trees would save some of my balls from my slice that I have on my golf game. But look, I really look forward to this. I really want people to broaden their minds, think about this, what do you want to see in the next 10 years? What do you want to see in the next 20 years? Because when the trees grow, it's going to be a really good-looking golf course, I think, in the very near future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. And look, I agree with all my colleagues' comments that this is an exciting next step in the future of this area. And also echo the emphasis that this draft precinct plan is a little bit different to some of the others that we've done because of the future of this site that will be operated not by council. It means that we've moved towards having a vision and key objectives and principles rather than prescriptive designs and plans. So there are drawings in this plan, but they're indicative rather than prescriptive. And it's the vision and key principles that are going to guide what's ultimately delivered for the site, with a bit of imagination and suggestions from those people who might manage it in future. But a couple of those key principles are really important, and they obviously, well, all of them are very important, but a couple of them really reflect the comments and feedback that I've received in the area around obviously the safety concerns with errant balls from the driving range, but also the pedestrian and vehicle conflict. And there's some suggestions in there about improving pedestrian connections and pathways, wayfinding, making it just a more accessible place for people to go and walk around. And there's a very sensible suggestion in one of the indicative designs of moving the car park entrance away from the pedestrian of the extension of Newsom Street. So I think there's some really great ideas in there that are going to improve the accessibility of the area. Another of the key principles is consolidation of the sporting infrastructure, and where that recognises as well the value of the park for its open space. So I think it's a in my opinion, it's a really good draft plan, and looking forward to hearing community's feedback on it.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? No. Councillor Isa, would you like to close?
Just briefly, thank you for bringing up the principles, Councillor Hodgson. I did notice that there wasn't necessarily a principle that specifically mentioned environment or climate, and I note that the precinct plan does point out that the majority of the area is in the flood inundation zone and has undergone 3 major floods over the past 50 or 60 years. So I did wonder if one of those principles perhaps maybe community might like to provide some feedback on whether you think the principles adequately capture some of those environmental values that other parts of the feedback have emphasised to date. And thank you also for bringing up that car park entrance. I was glad to see that as well. In fact, Shadow and my dog, were down at the park recently with the newly formed Friends of Fairbairn Park doing a clean-up, and we were almost taken out as we exited Newsom Street and entered the car park. And so some work around that, the conflicts there, would be helpful, I think. And thank you very much, Councillor Sypek, for mentioning the tree canopy and for giving a plug to the golf course, because while it does need some work, we would still like people to be making the most of it and enjoying it. I think it's perhaps more the driving range that is in a pretty poor state at the moment, and as soon as we can get the driving range into a much better state, I know that the people who use it will be really pleased about that and solving that conflict with the netball and tennis courts. So as I said before, let us know your thoughts, community, and we'll look forward to seeing this back in the chamber. Thanks.
Fantastic. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.2 on the agenda is the Community Grants Audit. Do I have a motion?
Did you want to move it?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional point. An additional point E. Point E to read, requests the CEO bring a report to Council prior to the 2023 grants program with a review of the current grants policy and program and relevant criteria and any recommended changes to ensure that these are in line with Council's current strategic objectives, such as the Council Plan and MB 2040, and achieves principles of equity.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. That is moved. And a seconder. Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. This report came as a response, I believe, to a notice of motion to review our current grants procedure to ensure that it was following in best practice. An independent assessment came back with recommendations on how we could improve the process in terms of governance procedures. I believe this report is provided as part of the agenda to the public if you're interested in having a read. Essentially, one of the major parts of one of the major risks that were identified in the report was that there was a lack of segregation in terms of the assessment and the endorsement or the award of the grants, which is recommended by VAGO and other integrity bodies such as the Local Government Inspectorate. I'm happy to support the recommendation in supporting that segregation. However, by supporting that essentially means that councillors won't have any ability to have input in the assessment of the grants anymore moving forward, and that our role is purely strategic, and that we set and help set the policy and the criteria for what the grants are assessed against. And so if that's the case, the amendment or the alternative, the additional point E, was to bring back the criteria and to reassess the policy and the program to ensure that we as councillors believe that that criteria is best in line with our current strategic directives that we've set in our council plan and in MB 2040, and that the CEO could bring that to us prior to the 2023 grants program opening. That's about it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Hodgson?
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bedio, for putting together that additional point. I think, yes, in terms of councillors' involvement to date in the grants program, it has been that we felt our input into the assessment process was valuable, but I can see that if we have another review of the criteria against which grants are assessed, that that can, in a way replace that input that we have through the assessment process and meet those best practice principles that the consultant's report recommends. There were the consultant's report generally did find that our grants process was pretty good, with just a few minor tweaks, and there are a couple of other recommendations in the report that through this recommendation our officers will be implementing to further strengthen it. One thing was that the consultant noted it's not all that usual to have members of the community on the assessment panel, but they found that this could be a strength of our grants program and just recommended that there was a bit of additional support and training provided to those community members who are on the assessment panel. I agree with the consultant. I think that that's, if it is a unique addition, it's a really valuable one, and I suppose I'll just take the opportunity again to thank those members of the community who take part in our grants program. I do think it strengthens the process. Other than that, not much more to say except to agree with the officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can see the positives for this and I can see the negatives for this. The whole idea of a grants process was to get a diverse group of people looking into these grants and assessing these grants. And the way we've got it set up right now is councillors don't have a majority on these committees. We're only just a small portion of it. But I think our input is very, very valuable in some of these assessments because we do have a little bit of extra knowledge about certain things, whereas certain committee members might only know about their little niche or they could know about the whole lot. But I think everything's diversified, everything's, should have diversity, when making decisions. And I think taking councillors out of the decision-making process, taking them out of just the process, not the decision-making, but out of the process, I think might go backwards. But I'm happy to look at it, trial it, see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm sure we can revisit it in 12 months' time or in 2 years' time to see whether we've made a mistake. And sometimes we've got to put our hands up and say, hey, listen, this didn't work for us. Maybe we should go back to what was quite good at that point. So for me, I will probably be voting against this just for the sake of making sure that if it doesn't work, we've probably got something to go back to.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Mayor. And echoing Councillor Sypek's concerns, I won't be supporting this either. I think for me and for yourself and Councillor Sypek, where we represent the lowest socioeconomic ward in Moonee Valley, and that reflects pretty frequently, I've found, in the grants programs where there's a much lower proportion of grants that are submitted to council, and out of those applications where there's a higher tertiary education, higher involvement in grants processes and those sort of things in Murnong and Buckley ward, that isn't reflected in how our locals know how to write applications. And so I think for me, not having councillor input, as well as not having that on-the-ground knowledge that our locals elected us to have, for me, is something that I just really can't support. I do appreciate Councillor Bedio's additional point E, though, because I think that's something that I'll be looking to. If this resolution is carried, I'll definitely be looking for criteria to lock in equal funding between wards and consideration for those in our community who can't write, perfect 2,000-word, beautiful grant submissions.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, look, I'd like to concur with Councillor Sypek and Councillor Tyson. For me, having councillors removed from the evaluation process of grants when we are awarding roughly $500,000 a year, we're here as representatives of our community, and to take us off the evaluation process because of some potential issues that are flagged in this report. I mean, we've all got a duty to declare conflicts of interests. We do declare conflicts of interests. I feel that through not having any input or any oversight or any look at any of the grants for myself, and effectively being a rubber stamp for $500,000 is not what I feel my role is on council. I think it's imperative, as Councillor Tyson said, you know, we've and Councillor Sypek mentioned too, we're here as representatives of the community, and we may know a lot more potentially about issues, and we may not, but at least we're there. We're providing a further diverse view around the table when we're evaluating these grant applications. And personally, I'm concerned about having councillors being taken off this process and being a rubber stamp. And when this all began, it was a bit of a witch hunt earlier in the year, and I certainly voted against this report even coming this far, and I'm certainly not going to back down on my stance now and support councillors being removed from this process as is flagged in this report. So thank you.
Councillor Sharp. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. So it was quite ironic that having initiated the audit into our own grants program, not long after that, there was a report handed down by VAGO that really makes clear to us that our councillor involvement in the assessment part of the process is a high fraud risk. And it wasn't something that was connected to Moonee Valley in any way at all, but the VAGO report which sprang from another local government inspectorate report in 2019 at Yarriambiack, has identified this key fraud risk. And so really what this recommendation to us is to follow through on the recommendation that's coming from Auditor General's reports around the country, from the local government inspectorate, and from our own Audit and Risk Committee, which is that to reduce our internal risk and our risks of fraud, this is a measure that is highly strenuously recommended to us, and it's no reflection at all on Moonee Valley's practices. In fact, the report said that we have really good processes, and that we set criteria, we do all the other things that the VAGO report said we need to do, and that it's just a couple of tweaks that we need to make to bring us in line with best practice. The concerns that have been voiced around whether the grants are distributed equitably, I'm really confident that those can be addressed through other mechanisms, like getting the criteria right and like getting community representation right. So I'm really confident that those principles can be addressed through other mechanisms that sit at the policy level. And on some things, our involvement, it's not about being a rubber stamp, it's actually our involvement has to be at that policy level because of the political risk. And we saw in The Age, I think this morning or yesterday, the Grattan Institute also recommending that at the state and federal level, politicians are removed from the grant process because it is so, it's so fraught with political interference. And so it's not a reflection on any problems that we've had here. It's us making sure that there are no problems in the future, or that we're in a position where our risk of fraud is greater than it should be. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll just add that, to be honest, I do concur with my colleagues across the chamber. In many ways, I see the recommendation as potentially diminishing our role as councillors. However, I would be reluctant to deny their advice, considering they have flagged it as a significant risk, and obviously I can vouch that as a council, and the report vouches that our grants process in general is quite good, and that we are quite astute as councillors in ensuring that we declare if there's conflicts within the grants process. However, the next best thing for me is, if we were going to endorse the recommendations of this report, that we at least have another look over, and if our role as councillors is to set the strategic direction of the grants, that we bring back the strategic direction and the policies, so that we can have another look to make sure that we as a council agree with the direction that we're taking with grants, and whether they are things such as ensuring that the grants are spread equally across the wards, whether we give a certain amount of grants to certain streams, that sort of thing. That's all within our remit as councillors in setting the strategic direction. So yeah, I do see both sides. However, I believe that we should be supporting the recommendations of this report, and therefore I hope my colleagues can support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Nation, Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against is Councillor Tyson, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Sharp. That motion is carried. Item 9.3 on the agenda is the Governance Rules 2022 review. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation with an amended point A.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. If you could read your point A.
So the full clause to read: A, adopt the updated governance rules and incorporated election period policy (brackets as attachment 1) with an amended clause 78 to read: 78, Chair may adjourn meeting. 78.1, if the Chair is of the opinion that disorder at the council table or in the gallery makes it desirable to adjourn the council meeting, or for any other reason, he or she may adjourn the meeting to a later time on the same day or to some later date as they determine appropriate. In that event, the provisions of sub-rules 17.2 and 17.3 apply.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. That is moved. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Sypek. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. So this motion, the report is to amend our governance rules. This came up through virtual attendance, and while we've been on Zoom for a good chunk of the last year and a half, and yourselves who were here last term prior to that. My point, the rest of the report is relatively straightforward. My point is just to a minor amendment around when you as Chair may adjourn the meeting, and that's to reflect what really we've been doing in practice, and to make sure that when you need advice or any councillor needs advice from officers or to discuss any motion that's occurred, we're able to give that time, and you're able to rule on that. So that's really all that I have to add on my amendment and the report as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I concur with my colleague. I think that this minor alteration is quite a positive alteration, and I fully support it.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, it's just reading this for the first time. I take it that this, and this is not asking a point of clarification. This is me thinking out loud as I read the screen. I take it at the moment the existing rules that are proposed to us are a little bit more definitive as to the mayor needing a particular reason to adjourn a meeting or adjourn it even to the same day or a later day. And I do think there is merit in there being reasons to, be it disorder, be it to seek advice from the CEO or governance, or be it even to assist with the preparation of a motion in writing. I guess thinking of it from a devil's advocate point of view, for any other reason, does that give the mayor an unreasonable scope that if, for any reason that something's not going a particular way that the mayor may want, they don't have to really have a reason just to stop the meeting and to tell everyone to come back tomorrow. So that's my concern with the inclusion of for any other reason. I also did think we removed gendered language, and it does say he or she. I'd prefer it to say they. I think we did listen to community feedback during the consultation period to remove the gendered language. So I also would hope that disappears should this get up through an amendment. But I guess that for any other reason, if everyone's on good terms and the mayor is running a tight ship, then it's not an issue, and that 78.1 up on the screen isn't an issue. But if the wheels were to fall off, I just hate to see that exploited. That's not necessarily me arguing 2 or 4. I just reading this for the first time. Just some thinking out loud. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Just on that point about the gendered language, which is a good point. I'm just scrolling quickly through the... did the amend, through you perhaps to the governance officer, were all of the he and she's changed to they in the changes? I'm just trying to quickly scroll through and I just can't.
I will have to pass through the CEO and you can direct as required.
Thank you, Mayor. Governance Manager Tao, can you please advise?
Yes, during the review, we have amended all the, make the all gender neutral. So I've changed all the he or she to they. This is probably use the current rules.
Could I just ask a follow-up? Would the point be authorise the CEO to make minor editing changes? Would that be considered by governance to be sufficient to change the he and she to they?
As the point of clarification, CEO?
Yes, I would think so. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Isa, did you want to speak to the motion?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. And the entirety of this motion is actually about, the central point of this motion is actually about the updating the governance rules so that we can have the virtual attendance and by the 2nd of September when we have to as a council. So don't want to lose sight of that. And the officers have taken the opportunity in that process to update the language to make it more gender neutral, which is excellent, and some various other typographical changes. One of the issues that I raised at when this came to council a few weeks ago in its draft form was that I was concerned that if there's a tech issue and someone drops out, there isn't actually in the existing rules the capacity for the mayor to adjourn the meeting. And so I'm quite interested in this amendment and whether or not that solves that problem, because it would have to go to a vote under the existing rules, the mayor couldn't, there's nothing in the existing rules that would allow the mayor to unilaterally, without it going to a vote of council, adjourn the meeting if there was a tech issue, which was my key concern at the last meeting. A mayor can only adjourn a meeting to, under the existing rules, a mayor can adjourn a meeting to allow time for an alternative resolution to be prepared, to consider how their casting vote will be cast, and to consider a point of order, or if there is disorder. They're the only reasons that a mayor can unilaterally adjourn the meeting, which isn't actually what happens in practice. In practice, the meeting is adjourned more regularly than those criteria, I would think. So I think I'm okay with what's on the screen, because I think it does actually mirror what we do in practice. Take the points that Councillor Nations raised, but I think it would be very odd if a chair did do that. Look, we're having the rest of the motion also talks about how we're having a full review in March 2023. I'm reasonably confident in our current chair's manner, and that this wouldn't be abused ahead of any refinements that might be able to be made in March 2023, and I think it's an important caveat. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Reiser. Any other councillor? Councillor Tyson, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. And I didn't really want to get into the reads on this at 7:15 on a Tuesday, because I'm sure anyone who's watching at home will be falling asleep very shortly after this debate. But my thinking was sort of originally with Councillor Reiser's proposal a few weeks ago around electronic attendance, virtual attendance, and that sort of thing. My view was that the less prescriptive our governance rules are on the mayor, and I can see you yawning, Mayor, I completely agree. I don't want to be prescriptive on the chair of the meeting, because it does usually, I think, bring into unforeseen circumstances. So I think to give you, as you have done over your term, the power to really, as I said previously, seek information from officers, seek clarification from councillors, allow councillors to pull together a motion. That was more my thinking with this, to reflect what practice has been currently. As was touched on, disorder is the main term currently, and it's quite vague as to what disorder is. Obviously, you've been quite general in what you view disorder to be. I do take Councillor Nation's points on board. In terms of the gendered language, I literally just copied what was in the current draft rules and added a few words, because I didn't really want to be prescriptive on these things. And I did circulate this a few hours ago, so apologies if you missed that. But look, for me, this is really about reflecting what current practice has been for at least my time on council, and ensure that you're not hamstrung, Mayor, in your running of a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Right, we're up to agenda item 10, which is notices of motion, and we do have one tonight. So 10.1, I will call on Councillor Sypek to present your notice of motion titled Electronic Scoreboard Priorities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Take notice that at the meeting of council, it is my intention to move the council resolve to, within the limits of the existing approved 2022-23 budget allocation of $350,000 for electronic scoreboards and timekeepers boxes, prioritise sporting fields in the following order for installation of electronic scoreboards: Cross Keys Reserve West, Hanson Reserve, Strathnaver Reserve. Funding from council will be allocated towards standard electronic scoreboards that will be 4 metres wide by 3 metres high and proposed by sporting clubs for large models or models which enhance systems ID, video replays capabilities may be considered by council on a case-by-case basis. All additional costs associated with the above standard installation are to be met by by the sporting clubs. If additional funds become available through favourable procurement conditions or external grants supporting the above locations, additional scoreboards will be prioritised to number 4 Boeing Reserve Oval 3 and Aberfeldy Park West. If there is surplus in this funding under the 2023 budget allocation, it will be directed towards the installation of a new timekeeper's box at Hanson Reserve, subject to consultation, feasibility, deliverability within the financial year. This prioritisation is set without cost certainties, and it is possible that not all of the locations will be delivered in 2023.
Thanks, Councillor Sypek. There was a slight change, particularly in that second last sentence. Could you just read, so it is what is on the screen. It was just from, if there is a surplus funding under the 2022-23 budget allocation, it will be directed towards the installation of a new timekeeper's box at Hanson Reserve. What were your words after that?
I've got subject to consultation, feasibility and deliverability within the financial year.
Thank you. I'll just wait till that goes up on the screen. And as is for the rest of it, I believe, councillors, are we all aware of what has been moved? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sypek, I think governance just need to grab that one more time. We've got reserve subject to consultation, feasibility and deliverability.
And deliverability within the financial year.
Within the financial year. Great, thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillors, can I just get a general nod that everyone's aware of what's been moved? Everyone's okay with that? Beautiful. And that's moved by Councillor Sypek. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Seconder, Councillor... Oh.
Scroll down.
Yeah, governance, if we can just scroll down, please. And... Okay. And we've got a seconder from Councillor Bettio. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we all know, we allocated $350,000 towards scoreboards and electronic boxes. We have to prioritise something in this year, but this is not the beginning and the end of everything. This is just the start, and we have to start somewhere. And we can only do, capital expenditure-wise, actually delivering some of these scoreboards. We can only do a certain amount in a year. So I'm hoping that my colleagues will see this is actually a progressive program. I think we're going to become a bit of a leader within local government by, replacing scoreboards. Implementing scoreboards, electronic scoreboards, and replacing some of the big signages that have been been a bit of a visual pollution around the place. I think this is a great start, and I hope that we can do this virtually over the next couple of years, and hopefully most of our reserves and sporting facilities will have beautiful electronic scoreboards that becomes a bit of a modern gadget for everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Bettio.
Not much to add, Mayor, other than happy to support you, Councillor Sypek, with this motion, and I'm also happy to support your long-term vision for the rollout of the the electronic scoreboards in our open space reserves. Obviously, many will know that we currently have a review being undertaken on signage and advertisements within our open spaces, and I can see that these digital scoreboards, with the possibility to have imagery and movies and whatnot on the devices, will allow us to remove some of the visual clutter that we have some residents concerned about in open spaces, and provide a happy medium for clubs to I guess run their sports games and have their scoring, but also show promotional signage for businesses. That's what I'd like to see, but obviously there's another review undertaking going on at the moment for that. So happy to support you, Councillor Sypek, on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bettio. Any other councillor? Councillor Sharp.
Well done, Councillor Sypek. Thank you, Mayor. Well done, Councillor Sypek. You've kept this issue about scoreboards alive for the last however long, and you brought the issue up to the budget for this year, 22-23, which was endorsed. And now you are just setting the priorities. And I know you've done a lot of work behind the scenes with everything to do with this issue, and you've really done a great job, and thank you for bringing this list to us tonight through an NOM just to get it signed, sealed, delivered for this financial year, and it's going to be a great feather in your cap, so thank you very much. It's great. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Sypek, for bringing this to the Chamber. I know it's something that's of great importance to you and to others, and I'm happy to support it. I just want to acknowledge that there was perhaps given Councillor Bedio's mentioned the work that's going on around signage, there was some confusion from people who were expecting that work to come back to the Chamber and weren't quite sure in what context this particular motion was being brought, and hopefully people are a bit clearer that this is about the allocation of the funding that was put in place at budget time for the digital scoreboards, which are part of the solution that we're really working hard on with respect to signage in public open space. And like many, I look forward to us being able to work through that issue and get to a solution that meets everybody's needs and get to a really happy situation for our open spaces and also our sporting clubs, and this is part of that process. So hopefully if anyone does have any questions about that, councillors will be really happy to talk through that some more. But this is a first part of that overall solution. Thanks, Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor? Councillor Sypek, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, I have been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years over this, and particularly in regards to talking to the community. I've had a lot of people who aren't with a sporting background that were more than happy to see this come along. The community has had great input into this. A lot of the sporting clubs have had input into this from all types of sporting activities. So we're not just talking football and soccer here, we're talking baseball, we're talking tennis, we're talking netball, and even cricket. And we're not necessarily going to have a one standard size 4x3 for every sport. Like some cricket clubs might only just need 2 lines. They don't need the wheels and the bells and whistles. It'll be a case by case basis, and I think with proper consultation here, we could have a very successful program here, and something that we should be all proud of, not only just as councillors, but us as a community and us as a sporting community as well too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 11 on the agenda is urgent business. Councillors, do we have any urgent business tonight? No, I don't believe so. In that case, we are up to item 12 on the agenda, which is a confidential report. And we do have one listed on the agenda this evening, which is 12 and 18 Craig Street, Keilor East, the construction of dwellings. At the start of the meeting, I declared that I had a conflict of interest in this item, a material conflict of interest, which I have submitted in writing to the CEO. So I will vacate the chair now, and I will pass over to the Deputy Mayor to chair this item.
Councillors, item 12.1 is considered confidential under the terms of section 3.1 of the Local Government Act 2020, as it contains information relating to information that was confidential information for the purposes of Section 77 of the Local Government Act 1989. The item is a VCAT compulsory conference matter. Councillors, do I have a mover and seconder to move this item into confidential? Moved Councillor Sypek, seconded Councillor Hodgson. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. This is where we say goodnight to all those watching the meeting via the live stream and those